Welcome back to the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, Chief Content Producer and writer of jakestake.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. It's episode 65 of the podcast. And as a Big Brother fan, I am so happy to welcome this woman on my right. She's a house guest from Big Brother season 14, but however, she's also an entrepreneur and an event producer. She's also the co-host of the Armchair All-Stars program on TVCO and also the host of the new podcast, Big Time Small Talk Podcast. Please help me welcome Jodi Rollins.
Hello. Glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And Jodi, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk with me. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Happy to be here.
Alrighty, so it has been 8 years since you joined the Big Brother community. So why did you originally want to audition for the long-running CBS summer competition show?
Well, it's funny that you say it's been 8 years since I've joined the community. My whole life, the whole entire experience of Big Brother, I feel like I've been part of it. From season 1, I've watched it all the way through. I didn't see last year, but it was such a part of my experience in life and my fiber and my being. I was obsessed from the get-go. I used to get my laptop and just watch the feeds. I would fall asleep with my laptop in the bed, just like watching every little detail. I loved everything, like the sociological, the psychological aspects of it, what happens when you put strangers in a house together. So I auditioned in 2006 and made the semifinals and didn't make it any further. But I just loved the show. I didn't even care about the money. Yes, I would love to make 500,000 or 50,000, but I just loved Big Brother. And that's why I auditioned.
Awesome. So you did have the chance, Big Brother 14. Sadly, and it's part of lore now, 8 hours that you become part of the show's lore. So would you want to return to Big Brother to redeem yourself?
Of course. And it's funny, when this season started and I was like, what the hell's David doing there? I deserve a chance. But I've never thought of myself as an all-star. I know sometimes people on social media will be like, you're an all-star, and I'm not. To me, an all-star means, well, to be honest, to me, an all-star is somebody who really competed at a higher level. They had something extra to offer in their game. They are above the average player. And that's not me. I wasn't there long enough. So at first I was like, I wanted to be where David is, but then I see how they treat him like kind of yesterday's trash, especially Memphis. And I'm glad I'm not there because I'm not an all-star. So I would love to go back on like a second chances or first out season or something like that, or all girls season. But yes, I would definitely go back if they asked me to, in a heartbeat.
I agree. And for me, I was actually thinking about BB Legends, and I was thinking of the wild cards to have 6 people to be mentored by the actual all-stars. You were one of the 6 names I immediately wanted in a legend season, in a fast-paced legend season as a wild card, because you are a legend in Big Brother show lore.
It is very strange to be called that and everything. And I remember, let's see. So after I got kicked out, and I didn't even really get voted out. They really shouldn't call it that because I was just picked by one person. That's, I think, the thing that sticks in my craw. If I had a chance to compete against Kara and what was her name? Danielle. Wait, was it
Murphy? Danielle Murphy?
Danielle. Well, I can't believe I forgot. If we could have the power of veto and campaigning, a really quick turnover, even something where the house has to vote. But just being picked by one person, I'm just like, what? But so when I left the house, I walked out, I was barefoot because it was so unexpected, even though they didn't show it. We were told that there was a chance that someone was going to go home. And then it was someone from that team. And we were all just sitting there sort of stunned. And, I could feel, and I've said this before, the air gets sucked out of the room. And I just was like, okay, once you are considered useless, people don't pay any attention to you. And so I remember Kara and I were just sitting there oh God, it's going to be one of us. And so leaving that house barefoot, thinking there's a twist, I'm really going back in, right? And you go right to sort of the green room, and Allison Grodner sitting there, and she's like, hey, wow, what an experience. You'll always be Big Brother trivia. And I'm like, I don't want to be Big Brother trivia. I want to experience. So it has been very strange to be like, sort of a historical person in all of this.
Actually, when the show did its first inaugural season of Celebrity Big Brother, I was so thrilled that you were part of that, even though it was a cameo. So when did you get that invitation to be a part of the first HOH competition?
I don't even remember at what point. I know when they reached out, one of the producers reached out to me, and they're like, it's going to be kind of a joke or something silly. They didn't say specifically what it was going to be, but I knew it was like something silly. And then I don't remember at what point they told me. It was definitely before I got there. And I was like, absolutely, because yay, I get to be back in that house or something, or in the yard or whatever. And just, it was fun to go back to the studio lot, back to the house. Like, I saw more stuff that I'd never seen before. The place I call like Santa's workshop, where they build all the stuff for the comps and everything. I was like, oh, I've never seen this. And we got to be in the backyard again, and in, the dressing rooms and the waiting rooms, and just see the producers. And so I just thought it was great. I know I've had people tweet me and say, well, you were the butt of the joke. I'm like, I got paid to just be like, and I got back there. So I was laughing to the bank.
And that's great. I was happy that you were actually there, and I was actually invited to be part of the house guests that welcomed the celebrities into the fold.
Yeah, and I got to meet Cody and Jessica, and I loved them. Cody, I felt like he got a bum rap on his season. He's a little intense, and he is more on the quiet side on the show. But in person, he was still a little quiet, but he talked, and he was a complete gentleman and just a nice guy. And I got to spend time with Jesse and Rachel. So, anytime I get to do anything Big Brother, I'm in.
Awesome. So what are some of the challenges that you face being associated with reality television? How have you overcome those obstacles?
I think a lot of it, honestly, is in my own head, because I end up talking about it because, I'm on a show about it now, or I did like the cameos, or I've been on every single season for the 8 years in some way, my likeness, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's exciting and it's fun. But I worry that like family and friends who have nothing to do with reality TV are going to be like, oh my God, would you shut up about Big Brother already? This is your whole experience and existence. And it really isn't. It's just that, being on Big Brother has been good to me. And it's been overall a positive experience, other than the fact that, I got kicked out unceremoniously, which was devastating. But I've made lifetime friends. I've made money. I've gotten to do all sorts of fun and unique things because of Big Brother. So I think the downside is that sometimes people worry, or I worry that they think, oh God, shut up. What are you talking about, Big Brother again? And I know I've had like a friend who really wanted to do sort of, acting and singing and public stuff. And then once I was on Big Brother and I got some kind of attention that I know she wanted, she wasn't really happy for me. And so it was a lot of putting it down. And I'm just like, wow, it's been great. So overall, it's definitely been good. The upsides outweigh the down, but it is something I think about.
Awesome. Before we get back to Big Brother, I got to talk to you about your company, Rollins Creative LLC. It's celebrating its 6th year. Can you please describe your company to my audience, and what have been some of your favorite memories throughout those 6 years?
Wow, so many. I started it. I used to work for the Chamber of Commerce here, one of our chambers of commerce. And when I was working there, I got to work a lot with small businesses. And you hear the stories about people who like save up their life savings, ask their friends and families and relatives and whatever to start a business, and just watching them create something that they're passionate about, whether it's a store or a restaurant or whatever. And I thought, I want to help small businesses do marketing. And so I knew I wanted to do marketing and events. And then as I started to realize, the thing about small businesses is they don't like to spend money, and they don't really have that much to spend when it comes to marketing. So it was not sustainable. As much as I was passionate about that, I couldn't pay my bills off of businesses that were like, can you just help us out for free? And I'm like, I need to get paid. Mm-hmm. So that's when I shifted my focus more to events. And people always say, oh, you do events like, birthday parties and whatever. And all of my stuff is self-produced. So it comes out of my head and into the stratosphere. And that's why I started my first event, which was an agricultural expo. And I always tell people, because they're like, wait, what does that mean? If you're not from here, it basically is like Comic-Con for agriculture. You show off equipment and machines, and there's vendors, and there's food, and there's live music, and then there's classes and workshops and everything to do with agriculture. And then from that, I started a women's business empowerment event because so many women came up to me and said, wow, how did you do that? I wish I could do different things. I'm too scared. And I was like, I want to, connect with other women and inspire other women as much as possible, because I've had so many women that have inspired me. So I wanted to sort of continue down the line. And then the happy things, like you said, the happy moments were just doing these things and creating these events and being able to speak to the public. And, we did sponsorships. We did grants and what do you call it? Not scholarships, grants and scholarships. And so we were able to give away money, which is awesome, to be able to change people's lives. So those were my highlights.
And I'm happy that you had it. I remember listening to one of your episodes and talking about Power Up and how much joy, from the joy that I heard from your voice. Yeah. It sounds like you had that event could be a milestone event. And have you thought about bringing it to a national level?
I would love to. I mean, it is so hard. I mean, on one hand, it's a great thing now because there are so many industries and so many things that, women are doing that has to do with female empowerment. So it's becoming a little bit of a crowded space, which is a good problem and a bad problem. It's like, yay, there's so many things, but it's hard to get the momentum, especially when you're like, you need basically national sponsorships to lift you up. So for me, when we just got done with the last one, we had San Diego State University as our main partner. And so that elevated the event. So each year it's just like baby steps,
I totally agree. And I'm very proud of you for that.
Oh, thank you. It's been hard.
All righty. So we got to get back to Big Brother. Now, I want to let you know that this season has been very hard for me to watch because, number one, I interviewed Nicole Anthony and I interviewed Bailey, so I had a little bit of personal investments. Okay. But also not to mention the fact that of the live feeds this year were a little bit awful because on September 9th, you were one of the first Big Brother alums to condemn Memphis Garrett, Danny Briones, Nicole Franzel, and Christmas Abbott because they made fun of your former season 14 houseguest and winner Ian Terry, who revealed earlier on Big Brother and also on the show and on the live feeds, he was diagnosed with autism. And what went through your mind when you saw those live feed clips? And in your humble opinion, should have the Big Brother production team step in? Why or why not?
It's interesting because I'd heard there was a few things on Twitter a little bit, and then I saw this article and I saw the clips and I was like, whoa, it's hard to watch. I don't like the glee that I saw with Memphis in particular. Like, it's one thing when you're laughing at somebody, which isn't good, but there was this extra sense of like heartlessness. And for me, I was like, I just wanted to share the article so other people could see. And my post went viral. It's the biggest post I've ever had. I mean, 3,000 people said something about it. It had like almost 300,000 engagement when you look at the Twitter thing. And I didn't expect any of that because I thought, well, everybody's sort of talking about this, and it just blew up. And it's kind of twofold for me. First of all, while I don't know Ian very well, I did meet him. I did spend some time with him and his family, and they are like the nicest people. His brother, Ian himself, he's so like kind-hearted. And that was before I knew he was on the spectrum. I just thought he was a little nerdy and quirky. And so for him to come out now, and I mean, everything in social media, once you put it out there, like it's out there forever. And so to me, it was very daring and courageous of him to do that. And to have a best friend, which I don't know if they really are, but that's what Nicole continued to say, kind of giggling along, like loyalty is everything to me. And that's like, if this is my best friend, I don't laugh about my best friend. I just don't. I don't even, I mean, there's so many ways that you can handle situations like that. And just as somebody's laughing and you say, I'm more awkward than Ian, and shift the focus, change the conversation without it being a big, I'm standing on a podium for everyone who's ever had this illness, or it's not really a disorder. I mean, it's more of a disorder than an illness, but she didn't even have to do that. She could just steer the conversation in a different way. It's just hard to watch. However, cancel culture, I don't think is the answer. When you talked about should the, producers step in, they don't really do that. I mean, I think in some cases I've heard they let the house guests know how they're being perceived, and maybe they even did that with this. But it's almost like you stick your foot in your mouth. That's how it goes. You make your bed, you have to eat it. And I think, on the other hand, there are times in our lives when we've all sort of said things or done things that we just weren't thinking. And I don't think that we should be condemned because we're all flawed people. It's just the actions and how they continue. And that's why, for me, when I look at Memphis, across the board, while he's a really good player, he's talented at comps, he's excellent at like making sure he positions himself in the right way because he's in that house and no one focused on him. The way he treated David, the way he treated other house guests, this whole
Anthony.
Yes, it's just been like, to me, that is who he is. Nicole, I think she just made a bad choice. I don't know. I'm not her. But I think it's important to keep that stuff in mind, especially when it comes to, people on the spectrum, race, sexuality, all of that stuff. It matters what you put out there.
And this has been a tough season. And and I gotta say, you are one of the co-hosts of TVCO podcast, Armchair All-Stars, that features not just you, but three other fan favorites, Matt Hoffman, Rachel Swindler, and Sam Smith. Could you please share Armchair All-Stars origin story with my readers? And also, what have been some of your thoughts as a group that you've oversaw the season?
What did you say? Share Armchair All-Stars what?
The origin story of Armchair All-Stars with my audience.
You know what's interesting about that is I don't even know specifically how it started. Matt Hoffman had reached out to me, and I met him a long time ago, and we kind of had kept in touch on Twitter, but not really. And he had reached out to me because maybe TVCO had reached out to them, and he said, here's some people I think that would make great co-hosts, which I was really honored. And we were kind of thrown together sort of like a boy band. And initially I was like, okay, this is going to be, I don't know. I was hopeful, but I really thought there was a chance that it could be a mess because, as you know, it's very easy to say, oh yeah, I can host, but it's not necessarily easy to do. And then you put four strangers together and people can talk over each other. There's personalities, there's ego. It can be a complete mess. But instead, I believe, and from the feedback we've heard, it's going really, really well. I mean, I enjoy my co-host. I did not know Sam. And like I said, I did not watch last season. I love him. Like, people say that kind of thing. Like, I just really, really enjoy him. He's got a big heart, and yet he's funny and interesting, and he has some great insight. Matt, I already loved, so that was nothing new. And he's really, really sharp and quick-witted and good and like a decent guy. And then Rachel, I was like, okay, well, is she just a pretty face? I mean, she's beautiful, but she's also smart and talented and great at co-hosting and funny. So it's been awesome to just talk with these four people, and we have a blast, and we genuinely like each other. So it's been good.
Yeah, I've watched one of the episodes, and it's incredible. You guys have a really good chemistry. And for people that was just put together for this for the All-Star season, I hope that if Big Brother 23 does happen, that you guys come back, because I would love to see your take on the newbies.
That would be nice. I mean, I'm hoping it just continues. I'm like, well, we could talk about all kinds of things. I mean, we are, if you think about it, kind of like a microcosm of what Big Brother used to be. I mean, we're different ages, different races, all walks of life, and we are all over the country when we're doing this. None of us are in the same city or state, and so it's really neat to see different perspectives. So I would love for the show to just keep going. Yeah.
I hope so too. So we got to talk about another show this time that focuses on you. So I want to congratulate you on launching your podcast, Big Time Small Talk Podcast.
Thank you.
Can you describe the podcast to my audience, and how does it stand out in the podcast world?
Well, I hope it stands out. You know, the reason why, and I'm sure you know this experience, I was like, what am I going to call this? What do I want to say? I have so much it's almost like it was like bubbling up inside of me, because I'll wake up in the morning, I'll be talking to my husband, and I'm like, did you see this on the news? I don't understand why this happens. And then, something about pop culture or water cooler issue. And I'm just like, I can't help myself. I can't help but talk about it. And I was like, I need to put this in a podcast. I had a show back when I got booted off of Big Brother, called Jodi's Box of Reality, which was an online radio show, and it was live. So it was a little bit different. And I had a lot of clips, and all I talked about was reality TV and a little bit of pop culture, which was fun. But I wanted to be able to talk about all of that stuff as well as like real life issues. And I found that, when we sort of look at social media and your friends, when they're on Facebook or whatever, it's a lot of like nicey nice or fights. And there's not a lot of in between. And I feel like with so much going on with civil and social unrest, political, a pandemic, just everything that all of us are facing in some capacity, there's a lot to talk about. And there's ways that we can learn from other people and share our perspective without it just being fight, and change your mind. And so that's why I was like, let me do a play on words, because small talk and surface conversations are safe, but there's no learning, there's no growth, there's no new experience. And I'm fine. I just vote. There's nothing in that. Instead of, look, I'm not fine. I'm upset about this or that, or I want to talk about something that's meaningful and that matters, as well as light and fluffy and have a good time. So that's why I did my podcast. That's why I named it Big Time Small Talk, because we're just getting out of the small talk and getting into real, deep, and meaningful conversations and issues.
I gotta say, guys, you guys need to not only download this podcast and look and listen to it. I gotta say, one episode I loved was your September 27th episode, Finding Motivation and Positivity During the Pandemic. It's an incredible listen to, and I really was moved by that podcast.
Thank you so much. And that's the thing. You asked, how does a podcast stand out in the time when everybody and his brother's, sister's, hairdresser's, wife's cousin has a podcast? And I get that. Two things I would say. Number one, I've always been a talker. I've told the story before, all the way back to when I was in elementary school, my teachers would be like, stop talking. And then they would move me to a different part of the classroom. And then I'd start talking to them, and they'd say, Jodi, stop talking. And they'd move me. And my 6th grade teacher said, Jodi, stop talking. You will never get paid to talk. Do your work. And I never forgot that, because I've gotten paid to talk in various capacities. So this is who I am. And that's the second part, is being authentic. Like, I expose myself, not literally, but I share personal details about my life, my thoughts, my experiences. And sometimes I'm like, should I really say all of this? But this is who I really am. And I know that when I listen to podcasts, whether someone was on a show or not on a show, celebrity or not a celebrity, it doesn't matter. What I listen for is truth and authenticity. Because there are badillion, gazillions, millions of podcasts that are like, hey guys, what's up? It's Susie and Michelle, and we're going to have a blast. I don't want to do that. I want real people talking about real things. I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers. I'm not the most beautiful person where I'm just like, let's look at sports and fitness and color and hair and about that. Real stuff. That's what I'm trying to do with the podcast.
And I am so happy that you started this, Jodi. I have a feeling it's going to be around for a long time.
From your lips to God's ears, I'm hoping. I am committed.
All righty. We have 3 more questions I got to ask you. So here is my third to last question. Let's talk social media.
Okay.
So what are some of your favorite platforms and why do they stand out?
It's funny because I'm such an old person. I remember way back to MySpace.
Jodi, you're not old. Don't say that.
I loved MySpace. For those of you who never did it or are too young, it was so much more creative. You could decorate your page. You could do all these like cool things. You could have music. So it was like people walked into a room and had an experience instead of just blue and white and whatever Facebook tells you. But then, of course, Facebook took over so early on. And so I really liked Facebook until it became this thing where I ended up with all these business contacts and all these people who aren't so similar to me, where it was like fighting and there's judgment about what I was posting. And not so much I'm fighting with them, but just like snarky comments. And that got to be too much. I literally just did a Facebook purge last night. I was like, who is that? I don't know them. I'm not interested in that. It needs to be a place where I still enjoy it. And I still want to hear other people's differing opinions, but I don't want to feel stifled because I share mine. And that's how I started to feel. Whereas when I go to Instagram, it's basically pictures and thought. Like, not so much like you're going to see politics. I suppose that's there, of course, but I don't post about that. And I love politics, but I make a concerted effort that, Instagram is pictures talking about the shows I'm on, sharing funny things, I do a lot of hiking and traveling, and that's what I like to share. Twitter is a dangerous place. It's just like, I've had negative stuff. It's like people go on there to be negative, and you can share all the positive stuff that you want, but there will always be a ton of negativity. And I found that even with Casey from Big Brother, I don't remember what season he was on. Remember, he was from the banana suit on. What season was that?
Banana suit. Casey.
He was on with
JC, don't you mean Casey?
He's like a DJ. It doesn't matter, but he was like in his 40s, and I can't remember which season. I never remember the numbers. I always remember the people. But so he posted something about, sort of self-deprecating. And I said, you know what? I loved you on Big Brother. He was really funny. He made me laugh. Yeah, he lost. And somebody just started in on him. What do you love about him? Including me. What's wrong? That guy was this, and just shit talking him. Can I say the S word?
You can. I'm going to make this an explicit podcast though, but
so
go ahead.
I'm seeing all this negative stuff, and I'm like, the guy hasn't been on Big Brother forever, and he just was saying whatever he was saying, and I just said I loved him, and then I got a barrage of what's wrong with you? Why would you love this guy? So it's a lot of negativity. But I literally just go, people are going to say whatever they're going to say, and I just ignore the negativity. Luckily, it's more positive for me than negative, but it's always there. And there's always zingers and, oh, what do you know? You were only in the house for 5 minutes. I've heard it. That doesn't hurt anymore. It's just a joke, whatever. I've heard it 1,000 times. It means nothing when people say it. So that's where I spend my time on social media. I'm not really a TikToker. I do watch it and it's funny, and I try to do the dances and I can't. And then I'm not really into Snapchat except to look at my stepkids. So.
All righty. So if you had the opportunity to meet with fans who want to audition for Big Brother, what advice will you share with them?
I have one really good piece of advice, and I think it's the difference between getting on that show, or at least getting the attention of the producers, and not. And here's what worked for me. A lot of times I see, prospective house guests going, I'm so good, and they'll send me their tapes or whatever, a digital recording. I'd be great at competitions. I love this show. I'm going to be awesome. I know I can handle myself. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear your flaws. When I auditioned, I was like, look, I have a big mouth. I talk too much. I cry easily. I'm really sensitive. So I'm going to be a mess on this show. That's what they want, if that's who you really are. If you're like, look, I can't keep my mouth shut. I try to keep secrets, but I can't. Tell them that. If you're like, I have a weakness when it comes to trusting people, tell them that. I mean, the truth. Don't make up something. You may not want to say I'm a weakling and I can't physically compete, but tell them your flaws if you're comfortable doing that, and show them what would make good television. I'm really good at everything is boring. For example, if you look at Cody, he's really good at everything. Beautiful, handsome guy. Doesn't get a lot of TV time until he makes himself look like an idiot and plays up for the camera as like, doo-doo-doo, Kobe.
Which Cody are we talking about?
Cody right now on this season.
Okay.
Whatever his last name is with his brother.
Cal Fieri.
Cal Fieri, that's right. So... be your authentic self and expose your flaws. Again, if you're not comfortable exposing your flaws, don't audition for Big Brother. But if you are, you'll have a higher likelihood of getting on if you show them your true self and all the things that are wrong with you.
All right, Jodi. So one final question is this. Where can my audience download the podcast, both of them, and also connect with you social media-wise? And also, if they need any business tips or anything, where can they connect with you for Rollins Creative?
Okay, so first of all, the podcast, Big Time Small Talk, the listening podcast, is available everywhere you get your podcast. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Breaker, and a bunch of other smaller platforms that I'm not 100% familiar with, but it's there. If you can't find it, you can always write me. You can find me on Instagram. My name, Jodi Rollins. That's JodiRollins, Jodi Rollins. I'm most active on Instagram, so I would love for you guys to reach out to me there. The TVCO show, we just got an exciting announcement. Armchair All-Stars is going to be simulcast live, not just on the TVCO app, so you don't even have to have it now. It's also going to be on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch and Twitter live all at the same time. So you can't escape us. That is a great way to get in touch with us as well. Just Google Armchair All-Stars, search Armchair All-Stars, or reach out to me and I will tell you how to find it. And then lastly, professionally with my business, if anybody wants to support the cause of really uplifting women or events, I am here for you. Just Google GetRollinsCreative.com. That's my website, GetRollinsCreative.com. And that's it.
All righty, guys. Now, if you want to download episodes of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast, head to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Spreaker. Just type in Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast. Once again, Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. We've had an incredible year so far. I'm not just Jodi, but I talked to Rachel Riley, Dr. Michelle Noonan-Ross, Catherine Dunn, and not only that, but the winner of America's Got Talent, Brandon Leak. I just did an interview with Brandon James from America's Got Talent, and also not to mention Survivors, Ethan Zahn. So it's been an incredible year, and go check out all those podcasts. And also subscribe to my social media channels. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, and I'm on YouTube. So head to Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. Once again, Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. And finally, to visit all my coverage of America's Got Talent and read my interviews with past Big Brother house guests, including Dan Gheesling in 2008, Jesse Goddard from last year, and also Morgan Willett, and also Polly Calfury, head over to jakestake.com. Once again, it's jakes-take.com. Jodi, thank you so much for your time and for coming on this show. I am so happy for all the success that you have, and I cannot wait for your next editions of both about the Armchair podcast and also, more importantly, Big Time Small Talk.
Yes, thank you so much. It was an honor to be here. I really, really appreciate it.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for listening and for watching, if you're watching for both versions. And have a great one, everybody. And until next time, thanks for watching and thank you for listening.